Welcome back, Coinology. When we think about coins that are valuable collector's items, our minds often jump to rare gold coins, ancient currency, or limited mint errors that fetch astonishing amounts at auction. But sometimes, ordinary coins we see every day can hold more intrigue and value than we initially imagine. One such coin that has captured the interest of collectors around the world is the 1981 cent coin. At first glance, it may look like an everyday penny, a small copper disc we use to make change or overlook in our pockets. But there is a story behind it, a story of design, history, minting, weight, symbolism, rarity, and the surprising ways in which its market value can fluctuate. In this detailed narrative, we will explore every facet of the 1981 cent coin, examine the myths and truths about its worth, and place it within the broader context of coin collecting and financial history. The 1 cent coin from 1980 was minted in the United States, and it belongs to a long lineage of pennies that have circulated through American life for more than 2 centuries. In order to truly appreciate this coin, we have to understand the role of the 1 cent piece in American society. The U.S. 1 cent coin has a storied history dating back to the late 18th century. Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, and other founding fathers debated the need for small denomination coins that could facilitate everyday transactions. The 1 cent coin became a staple of commerce, a symbol of value for everyday Americans. Over time, its design has changed, its composition has evolved, and its role has shifted. By 1980, the 1 cent coin was firmly established as a fixture of U.S. currency, but its composition had changed from the original large copper cents to a more modern blend designed to reduce production costs. The 1980 penny weighs approximately 3.11 grams. This is because the U.S. Mint had, earlier in the 20th century, transitioned away from the heavier, nearly pure copper composition of earlier pennies. The 1980 penny is made primarily of copper with a small percentage of zinc, 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition that had been introduced decades earlier to balance durability and cost. This composition gives the coin its distinctive reddish appearance, a color that collectors prize for its luster and visual appeal. The weight of the coin is an important characteristic for collectors, because coins that deviate significantly from the expected weight can signal minting errors, composition anomalies, or other unusual features that can dramatically affect value. Examining the coin closely, one sees that the obverse, or front, of the 1981 cent coin features the profile of President Abraham Lincoln. This design was first introduced in 1909, marking the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and replaced the earlier wheat penny design that had been used since the inception of the Lincoln cent. The 1980 Lincoln profile was created by Victor D. E. Brenner, a sculptor and engraver whose initials, VDB, have become famous among collectors. Interestingly, the presence or absence of these initials, especially in rare variations, has influenced the coin's value. The coin's reverse, the back, features the familiar image of the Lincoln Memorial. This depiction was created in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the original wheat ears design. On the tiny columns of the Lincoln Memorial can, with magnification, be seen a miniature likeness of President Lincoln himself, a layer of design complexity that delights numismatists who enjoy studying minute details. The architectural beauty of the memorial and its symbolic resonance with the values of unity, freedom, and democracy further enhance the coin's stature as more than just a piece of metal. Many people assume that every coin minted in a given year is identical, but the reality is far more fascinating. Even within the 1981 cent coins, there are variations based on the mint where they were produced. The U.S. Mint operates multiple facilities, and in 1980, the primary mints producing pennies were the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark, whereas coins from Philadelphia typically do not carry a mint mark at all for that year. Collectors carefully track these differences because sometimes the production numbers between mints differ, and in rare cases, errors or limited production runs can create scarcity. In terms of sheer numbers, billions of 1980 pennies were minted. It was a year of high production, reflecting the ongoing need for small change in everyday commerce. So, the common 1980 penny is not inherently rare in a conventional sense. If you find a 1980 penny in your pocket change, you are not alone. Millions upon millions were released into circulation. Yet, within this abundance, nuance arises. Some coins may exhibit errors, die cracks, doubled dies, off-center strikes, or unusual toning from the conditions in which they were stored. Those anomalies can elevate the coin from a common piece of currency to a sought-after collector's item. The fascinating world of coin grading further impacts the value of any 1980 penny. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, assess coins on several criteria: strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and eye appeal. They assign a grade ranging from poor to mint state, with the highest numerical scores reserved for coins that appear as flawless as the moment they left the mint. A 1980 penny in average circulated condition might be worth only its face value, or slightly more to a collector who needs that date to complete his set. By contrast, a 1980 penny in pristine gem uncirculated condition, especially if certified by a leading grading service, could be worth several dollars, or even more. This gulf between everyday value and collectible value is a central theme in understanding how ordinary coins can become extraordinary. Despite its common status, the 1980 penny has also been the subject of legends and speculation. Some online claims suggest that particular versions of the 1981 cent coin are worth hundreds, thousands, or even $699 million. It's important when discussing value to separate fringe myths from informed numismatic analysis. No known 1980 penny, regular or error, has been documented to be worth hundreds of millions in legitimate coin markets. However, the allure of such stories speaks to the human fascination with treasure, luck, and rare finds. Actual high-value coins typically have verifiable rarity, exceptional condition, or unique historical significance. A coin graded MS-67 or higher, mint state 67 on the Sheldon grading scale, could command significant premium above face value, because few coins survive in such pristine condition after decades of handling and circulation. Coins with mint errors, for instance, off-center strikes of significant degree, double die outbursts, or planchet errors, can fetch hundreds or even several $1,000s at auction. Some particularly dramatic errors have attracted widespread media attention and have sold for sums that seem immense compared to their humble origins. The market for collectible coins, including the 1980 penny, fluctuates based on broader economic conditions, collector interest, and trends within the numismatic community. Unlike commodities with fixed pricing, coin values can be subjective, tied to what buyers are willing to pay and what sellers can justify. Auction houses such as Heritage Auctions and Stacksbowers regularly feature collections that include modern coins in exceptional condition. Coin shows, online marketplaces, and private sales form a complex ecosystem where rare finds change hands. Collectors often seek to build complete date and mint mark sets. For example, a collector gathering all Lincoln Memorial pennies from 1959 onward may value the 1980 D mint mark or the Philadelphia version to complete their set. The worth of a coin in that context becomes not just monetary but sentimental, part of a larger narrative or journey in a collection. It's also important to briefly touch on the symbolism imbued in the imagery of the coin. The selection of Abraham Lincoln for the 1-cent denomination was intentional. Lincoln represents unity, perseverance, and moral courage, qualities that resonate deeply in American identity. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse further reinforces this symbolism, standing as an architectural tribute to Lincoln's legacy in the nation's capital. Now let's go even deeper into the 1981 cent coin and truly understand how something so small can generate such enormous curiosity, speculation, and sometimes exaggerated claims about being worth $699 million. When we move beyond the surface and begin analyzing the coin through the eyes of serious collectors and professional numismatists, we start to uncover the real mechanisms that determine value. One of the most important factors affecting the value of a 1980 penny is condition. Condition is everything in coin collecting. Two coins minted in the same year, at the same mint, even struck seconds apart, can have dramatically different values decades later depending on how they were preserved. A coin that entered circulation and spent years passing from hand to hand will show wear on Lincoln's cheekbone, flattening in his hair details, dullness in the fields, and possible scratches or discoloration. Such a coin, even if perfectly authentic, usually carries little premium over face value. On the other hand, a 1980 penny that was never circulated, perhaps saved in a roll, stored carefully in a protective holder, or preserved in a collection, can retain its original mint luster. That bright copper shine, often described as red in grading terminology, is highly desirable. Professional grading services classify copper coins by color designation: red, RD, red-brown, RB, and brown, BN. A fully red 1980 penny in high mint state grade is much more valuable than a brown one of the same numeric grade. Over time, copper reacts with oxygen and environmental elements, gradually darkening. Therefore, finding a 1980 penny that has retained full red brilliance for more than 4 decades is increasingly difficult. Grading companies use a numerical scale from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS60 might show some marks but no wear, while an MS65 or MS66 is considered gem quality. At MS67 or above, the coin becomes exceptionally rare for modern circulation strikes. It is at these ultra-high grades where auction prices can climb dramatically. A top population 1980 penny graded MS67 read by a leading service may command hundreds of dollars, sometimes more depending on demand. However, this is still far from the mythical hundreds of millions sometimes claimed in sensational online stories. Now let's talk about mint errors, because errors are where true surprises can happen. The minting process involves massive presses striking blank planchets with dies under enormous pressure. Occasionally, mistakes occur. A die might be misaligned, a blank may feed improperly, or a defect may exist in the metal itself. These errors create unique coins that differ from the billions of normal strikes. An off-center strike is one such error. If the planchet is not properly seated during striking, part of the design may be missing. Collectors value off-center strikes more when the date is fully visible and when the off-center percentage is dramatic yet aesthetically appealing. A 1980 penny struck 30% to 50% off-center with a clear date can sell for a significant premium. Another important variety is the double die. This happens during the die creation process when the die receives multiple impressions slightly misaligned, resulting in double design elements. If a 1980 penny exhibited strong doubling in the lettering or Lincoln's profile, it could attract attention from collectors. However, confirmed major double die varieties for 1980 are not among the most famous in the Lincoln Cent series, making such dramatic finds uncommon. Die cracks and cut errors also exist. A die crack appears as a raised line on the coin, formed when the die itself cracks under stress. A cut is a more dramatic break where part of the die edge breaks away, leaving a raised blob on the coin's rim area. These can increase collector interest, though values depend heavily on visual impact and rarity. Another factor influencing value is mintage numbers. In 1980, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies, and the Denver Mint also produced billions. High mintage generally reduces rarity, which in turn limits baseline value. However, survival rate in top condition is different from total mintage. Many coins minted in 1980 entered heavy circulation and were not preserved carefully. Over decades, coins get lost, damaged, melted, or discarded. Therefore, pristine examples become scarcer relative to the original production numbers. We must also consider historical economic context. In 1980, the United States was experiencing significant inflation and economic turbulence. The price of copper was fluctuating. Eventually, just 2 years later in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny from primarily copper to copper-plated zinc to reduce costs. That makes the 1980 penny part of the last era of predominantly copper cents. Some collectors appreciate pre-1982 pennies for their higher intrinsic metal content compared to modern zinc cents. If you calculate the copper value in a pre-1982 penny, during times of high copper prices, the metal content can approach or exceed face value. However, it is illegal in the United States to melt pennies for their copper value. So while metal value can influence perception, it does not typically drive market prices in a legal collectibles sense. Now let's address the idea of extreme valuations like $699 million. In legitimate numismatic markets, such a valuation for a 1980 penny would require unprecedented circumstances, perhaps a unique minting anomaly never seen before, certified and authenticated, with global publicity and extreme collector demand. In reality, no verified 1980 penny has sold for anything remotely close to such figures. The highest prices in coin collecting history are reserved for legendary rarities like the 1933 Double Eagle gold coin, which sold for over $18 million, and that was a gold coin with extraordinary legal and historical significance. Compared to such icons, the 1980 penny is a modern mass-produced coin. However, misinformation spreads quickly online. Viral social media posts often claim that certain common coins are worth millions, encouraging people to check their change. While it is always good to inspect your coins for errors in condition, it is equally important to verify claims using reputable numismatic sources. If you believe you have a rare 1980 penny, the first step is careful examination under magnification. Look for doubling, unusual thickness, incorrect weight, or dramatic strike anomalies. Use a precise digital scale capable of measuring to at least 2 decimal places. A normal 1980 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant deviation might indicate a wrong planchet error, for example, if struck on a foreign coin blank. Such wrong planchet errors are rare and can be valuable. After self-examination, consider consulting a reputable coin dealer or submitting the coin to a professional grading service. Certification not only authenticates the coin but also stabilizes its value in the market. Buyers are far more confident purchasing a certified coin than an uncertified one, especially at higher price points. Storage is another important topic. Copper coins are sensitive to environment. Humidity, fingerprints, and improper holders can cause spotting or corrosion. Collectors often use acid-free holders, coin flips, or slabbed cases to preserve quality. Even slight mishandling can reduce a coin's grade, which directly impacts its value. Another interesting aspect of the 1980 penny is toned examples. Over time, copper coins can develop beautiful rainbow toning if stored in certain conditions. While toning is subjective, attractive natural toning can increase a coin's desirability. However, artificial toning, deliberately altering a coin's color, is frowned upon and can hurt value. We should also consider roll searching. Some collectors buy rolls of pennies from banks and search through them looking for older copper cents, rare dates, or errors. Because the 1980 penny is now more than 4 decades old, finding high-grade examples in circulation becomes harder each year. Occasionally, someone discovers a surprisingly well-preserved coin in an old roll, which can then be submitted for grading. The psychology behind coin collecting plays a significant role in value. Humans are drawn to stories of hidden treasure. The idea that a simple penny could be worth life-changing money is exciting. This excitement fuels continued interest in numismatics. Even if the realistic value of most 1980 pennies remains modest, the hobby itself offers intellectual satisfaction, historical appreciation, and sometimes profitable discoveries. As we continue going deeper into the world of the 1981 cent coin, it becomes important to understand how serious collectors analyze population data and auction history to determine whether a coin has true investment potential or is simply a common issue with limited upside. Population reports published by major grading services reveal how many examples of a specific coin have been certified at each grade level. This data becomes extremely powerful when studying modern coins like the 1980 penny. While billions were minted, the number surviving in ultra-high grades such as MS67 red or above is dramatically smaller. It is this rarity at the top of the grading scale that creates price separation. For example, imagine there are millions of circulated 1980 pennies, hundreds of thousands of uncirculated examples saved in rolls, but only a few dozen graded at MS67 red and perhaps only a handful graded higher. Collectors who compete to own the finest known example, often registry set participants, may bid aggressively at auction. Registry set collecting has changed the modern coin market significantly. Collectors register their graded coins online and compete for the highest ranked complete sets. Because points are awarded based on grade rarity, even a single point difference in grade can mean the difference between first and second place in rankings. That competition can drive prices far beyond what casual observers might expect for a common penny. Auction case studies further reveal how condition influences value. A standard uncirculated 1980 penny pulled from a roll might sell for a few dollars. But if a coin is certified at an elite grade and designated as one of the finest known examples, bidding can escalate rapidly. However, even in such cases, realistic market results remain within hundreds or perhaps a few $1,000s, not hundreds of millions. Understanding the difference between hype and documented auction records is essential for any serious collector or investor. Let's now explore another fascinating aspect: transitional errors and composition anomalies. The early 1980s were a time of economic pressure for the United States Mint due to rising metal costs. In 1982, the composition officially changed from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc. Because 1980 was only 2 years prior to that transition, some collectors speculate about the possibility of experimental strikes or unusual planchet mixes. While no officially recognized 1980 zinc cents exist as circulation issues, the idea of a wrong planchet error remains exciting. If a 1980 penny were somehow struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or foreign coin, that would represent a genuine rarity. These types of wrong planchet errors have occurred in other years and denominations and can command substantial premiums. To detect such an anomaly, weight becomes crucial. A standard 1980 copper cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams. If a coin weighs significantly less, closer to 2.5 grams, that would align with post-1982 zinc cents. Conversely, if it weighed more than standard tolerance, that could suggest an incorrect blank. Precision digital scales are therefore a basic but powerful tool in a collector's toolkit. Beyond physical traits, we should examine die life and strike quality. Dies wear down over time. Early die-state coins often show sharper details and stronger strikes. Late die-state coins may display flow lines, die cracks, or softened details. Some collectors actually specialize in studying die states, tracking crack progression and identifying specific die pairings. Even for a common year like 1980, there can be numerous die varieties waiting to be cataloged. Let's also consider the visual artistry of the coin. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln is one of the most enduring designs in American coinage history. The 1980 penny carries that design in its mature form, refined over decades of production. The Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959, holds subtle intricacies. Under magnification, you can see the tiny seated Lincoln statue inside the memorial, a remarkable feat considering the coin's small size. For collectors who appreciate art and craftsmanship, these details transform a simple cent into a miniature sculpture. Environmental effects over 4 decades also play a role in today's available supply. Copper is reactive. Pennies stored in humid basements may develop corrosion spots. Coins exposed to air pollution can darken unevenly. Coins stored in old paper rolls may tone differently depending on sulfur content. All these factors influence present-day condition rarity. Ironically, some coins that survived in untouched rolls may have developed spotting due to storage conditions, reducing their grade potential. Truly flawless red examples become scarcer each year. We must also address cleaning. Many inexperienced collectors mistakenly believe that polishing or cleaning an old penny will increase its value. In reality, cleaning almost always damages a coin's surface and reduces its grade dramatically. Professional graders can easily detect hairline scratches or unnatural brightness caused by abrasive cleaning. A cleaned 1980 penny, even if originally high grade, will lose significant value. Preservation in original state is always preferred, and now let's examine long-term investment perspective. Modern coins like the 1980 penny are generally not considered high-return investment vehicles unless they are in top population grades or have rare errors. Key-date coins, such as the 1909 SVDB or 1914 D Lincoln cents, have historically demonstrated stronger appreciation due to genuine scarcity. The 1980 penny does not fall into that key-date category. However, that does not mean it lacks interest. For new collectors, assembling complete Lincoln Memorial sets from circulation can be an affordable and educational entry into numismatics. Another angle to explore is the intrinsic metal narrative. Because 1980 pennies are mostly copper, some individuals hoard pre-1982 cents anticipating potential changes in melting laws or long-term metal price increases. While melting pennies remains illegal in the United States, the speculative interest persists. Bags of copper cents are sometimes traded at a slight premium over face value among hobbyists who believe in future metal-driven demand. The coin market is also influenced by generational shifts. Collectors who grew up in the 1960s and 1970s often feel nostalgic about copper pennies. As newer generations encounter mostly zinc cents with duller appearance, the earlier copper coins may gain aesthetic appeal. Over decades, nostalgia itself can subtly influence demand. If we revisit the dramatic claim of $699 million, it is important to place that figure in context. The entire annual output of pennies in 1980 represented face value in the billions of dollars. For a single example to be worth $699 million would require it to exceed the value of many of the most famous coins in existence combined. Such a scenario would require historic uniqueness comparable to legendary rarities known worldwide. No documented evidence supports such valuation for any 1980 penny. However, sensational figures often circulate online to capture attention and encourage coin searching. What truly makes the 1980 penny fascinating is the intersection of ordinary and extraordinary. Billions were made, yet each coin has its own life story: where it traveled, who handled it, what purchases it facilitated. Some were saved immediately in mint rolls. Some were dropped into piggy banks. Some traveled overseas in soldiers' pockets. Every coin carries invisible history. For anyone hoping to discover a valuable 1980 penny, the realistic approach is careful examination, knowledge of grading standards, awareness of mint error types, and consultation of reliable price guides. The journey of learning itself becomes rewarding, regardless of monetary outcome, and still, there is more to explore: deeper breakdown of mint production statistics, advanced error classifications, comparison between Philadelphia and Denver strike quality, and strategies collectors use to build high-ranking sets. When you are ready, say Part 4, and we will continue expanding this comprehensive deep dive into the 1981 cent coin story. As we move even deeper into the story of the 1981 cent coin, we now begin examining the technical production side of the coin in greater detail, because understanding how the coin was made gives us insight into how rare variations and high-grade examples come into existence. In 1980, the United States Mint was operating large-scale industrial coining presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Massive coils of copper alloy were fed into blanking machines that punched out round discs called planchets. These planchets were then annealed, cleaned, upset to raise their rims, and finally fed into coining presses where die struck the designs with tremendous force. The obverse die bore the portrait of Abraham Lincoln along with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1980. The reverse die featured the Lincoln Memorial along with "United States of America, E Pluribus Unum," and 1 cent. Each strike required perfect alignment between obverse and reverse dies. However, because of the speed and scale of production, minor imperfections inevitably occurred. This is where varieties begin to appear. Die wear was common in high production years like 1980. The more coins a die strikes, the more it deteriorates. As it deteriorates, fine details soften. Collectors who study die states can often identify early die state coins with crisp detail and later die state coins showing flow lines or cracks. Some collectors actively search for die cracks that extend from the rim into Lincoln's portrait or across the memorial columns. While minor cracks may not dramatically increase value, large and dramatic cracks can make a coin more collectible. The Denver Mint coins of 1980 carry a small D mint mark below the date. The placement and clarity of that mint mark can vary slightly depending on die preparation. Because mint marks were still being punched into dies by hand in that era, prior to the 1990 central hub changes, slight positional variations exist. Some collectors enjoy studying mint mark positions for minor varieties, even though such differences are usually subtle. A Philadelphia Mint coins in 1980 did not carry a mint mark. This sometimes confuses new collectors who assume a missing mint mark means rarity. In this specific year, no mint mark simply indicates Philadelphia origin, which is completely normal. Now let's analyze strike quality between mints. In some years, one mint is known for sharper strikes than another. Strike quality can influence grading outcomes. A sharply struck coin with strong details in Lincoln's hair and the memorial columns has better potential for high-grade certification. Weak strikes may limit the maximum achievable grade even if surfaces are clean. Subtle differences in striking pressure, die alignment, and die condition between mints can produce small but noticeable differences. Another aspect to consider is contact marks. During production, freshly struck coins fall into bins and collide with one another. These impacts create small nicks and abrasions known as bag marks. Because pennies were produced in enormous quantities and stored in bulk, many uncirculated coins already had contact marks before ever entering circulation. This explains why finding a nearly flawless 1980 penny decades later is challenging. A coin must have avoided heavy contact and environmental exposure for over 40 years to earn a top-tier grade. Now let's discuss the economics of grading versus raw coin sales. Submitting a coin to a professional grading service involves fees that may range from tens to over $100 depending on service level. Therefore, collectors must carefully evaluate whether the potential value justifies submission. If a 1980 penny appears to be only MS63 or MS64, the cost of grading may exceed its market value. However, if a collector truly believes the coin could achieve MS67 red or higher, the potential premium may justify the expense. Professional grading also provides encapsulation in tamper-evident holders, often referred to as slabs. These holders protect the coin from environmental damage and enhance buyer confidence. In the modern market, high-value coins are almost always traded in certified holders rather than raw form. Let's explore auction psychology. When a top population 1980 penny appears at auction, bidding activity depends heavily on how many registry set collectors need that specific grade. If only one example exists at the highest grade, competition can be intense. If multiple examples exist, prices may remain more modest. Auction houses publish past realized prices, which provide transparency. Reviewing such records gives collectors realistic expectations instead of relying on exaggerated claims found on social media. Now imagine a scenario where a previously unknown dramatic mint error is discovered on a 1980 penny. Suppose a coin were struck 50% off-center with bold red luster and full date visible, graded at a high uncirculated level. That could generate significant excitement. Or imagine a double strike with dramatic shift between impressions. Unique visual appeal drives strong bidding because collectors value eye-catching errors. In rare cases, spectacular modern errors have sold for thousands of dollars. But again, these are exceptional cases, not standard circulation coins. Another factor influencing long-term interest is educational accessibility. The 1980 penny is affordable and widely available, making it an excellent teaching tool for new collectors. Parents and educators often use Lincoln cents to introduce grading concepts, mint mark identification, and historical context. Because the coin features Abraham Lincoln, discussions naturally expand into American history, the Civil War, and national unity. Thus, even a common penny becomes a gateway to deeper knowledge. The storage environment over decades significantly impacts present-day quality. Coins stored in original bank-wrapped rolls may exhibit roll toning, where the outer coins tone differently than inner coins. Some collectors appreciate attractive peripheral toning patterns. However, spotting small dark specks caused by contaminants can reduce grade and eye appeal. Temperature stability and low humidity are crucial for preserving coppa's bright red color. Let's also talk about counterfeit risks. While it may seem unlikely that someone would counterfeit a common 1980 penny, high-grade certified coins can command enough premium to attract fraudulent activity. Counterfeit slabs and altered coins occasionally appear in the market. Therefore, purchasing from reputable dealers and verifying certification numbers through grading company databases is always wise. Another interesting concept is conditional rarity versus absolute rarity. Absolute rarity refers to how many coins were originally minted. Conditional rarity refers to how many survive in top condition. The 1980 penny is not absolutely rare. Billions were minted, but it can be conditionally rare at the highest grades. This distinction is essential for understanding modern coin markets. We should also examine demand cycles. Coin collecting popularity rises and falls with economic conditions and generational interest. In times of economic uncertainty, tangible assets like coins sometimes attract renewed attention. During strong economic expansions, disposable income may fuel hobby spending. Therefore, values can fluctuate gradually over decades. Now imagine someone finds a pristine 1980 penny in an old family collection, still blazing red with no visible marks. The excitement of possibly holding a top-grade coin is powerful. But patience and objective evaluation are critical. Many coins that appear flawless under casual inspection reveal tiny imperfections under magnification. Professional grading is unforgiving at the highest levels. While sensational headlines may claim astronomical figures like $699 million, the true beauty of the 1980 penny lies in its blend of accessibility and hidden potential. It reminds us that extraordinary value in coin collecting usually arises from a combination of rarity, preservation, documented authenticity, and sustained collector demand. We are still not finished. There are deeper discussions to explore about long-term copper trends, comparison with other transitional-era coins, analysis of mint distribution logistics in 1980, and advanced strategies collectors use to cherry-pick undervalued examples. As we continue pushing deeper into the full universe surrounding the 1980 1-cent coin, we now step into a broader analytical perspective, one that connects mint production logistics, national distribution systems, economic forces, and collector strategy into one complete picture. Because to truly understand how a simple penny from 1980 can carry value beyond its face amount, you must see the entire ecosystem that surrounds it. In 1980, the United States Mint was not simply producing coins randomly. Production numbers were based on Federal Reserve demand projections. Banks across the country would request coins to meet transactional needs. Those coins would move from mint facilities into Federal Reserve vaults, then to regional banks,
and finally into local circulation.
The 1980 penny therefore traveled through an organized distribution network before reaching consumers.
Some coins went directly into circulation immediately. Others remained stored in bank vaults for months or even years.
This delay in circulation sometimes preserved higher quality examples simply because they were not exposed to heavy use early on. The scale of production in 1980 was enormous. Billions of pennies were struck that year.
High production numbers mean that most examples are common today. However, survival rate in pristine condition is a different question entirely.
Over 4 decades, coins are lost in couch cushions, thrown into fountains, corroded in jars, buried in soil, or damaged in counting machines. Each of those factors slowly reduces the number of high-grade survivors. Even though billions were minted, the number of coins capable of grading at the very top levels becomes surprisingly small. Another advanced topic to explore is die pairing analysis. Each obverse die was paired with a reverse die. Over time, subtle differences in die polish lines, micro scratches, and positioning create identifiable die pairs.
Some specialized collectors study these pairings to catalog minor varieties.
While the 1980 penny does not have a legendary die variety comparable to some earlier Lincoln cents, that does not mean die research is complete. Modern research continues to uncover small distinctions even decades later. Let's move into advanced grading nuance. When a grading service evaluates a 1980 penny for a potential MS67 or higher designation, graders inspect microscopic details. They analyze the cheek of Lincoln for the smallest tick marks. They inspect the fields for minute carbon spots.
They examine luster flow under bright lighting to determine originality.
A single tiny flaw can lower a coin from MS67 to MS66, cutting potential value significantly. This razor-thin margin between grades explains why registry collectors compete fiercely for the finest known examples. Color designation in copper coins deserves further expansion. A fully red, RD, coin must retain nearly complete original mint red color. A red-brown, RB, coin displays partial toning but still retains noticeable red areas.
A brown, BN, coin has toned almost completely.
Because copper naturally darkens with time, red examples become increasingly scarce as decades pass. Therefore, a 1980 penny certified MS67 red is exponentially more desirable than an MS67 brown example. We must also examine the psychology of perceived rarity. When collectors hear exaggerated claims such as "this coin is worth $699 million, curiosity skyrockets. People rush to check their spare change. This phenomenon occasionally causes temporary spikes in online listing prices, even if those prices are unrealistic. Sellers may list ordinary 1980 pennies for absurd amounts hoping an uninformed buyer will purchase them. However, completed auction results tell the real story. In legitimate markets, price is determined by actual sales, not by asking prices. Now consider copper market influence from a macroeconomic standpoint.
In 1980, copper prices experienced volatility due to inflation and global economic tension.
That environment partly foreshadowed the eventual 1982 composition change. Today, some collectors accumulate pre-1982 copper cents anticipating long-term metal value appreciation. Even though melting pennies is illegal, speculative hoarding reflects belief in intrinsic material value. Bags of copper cents are sometimes traded at modest premiums among enthusiasts who separate copper from zinc pennies. Storage science is another layer of sophistication.
High-level collectors use climate-controlled safes or bank deposit boxes. Silica gel packets absorb moisture. Inert plastic holders prevent chemical reactions. Some collectors even avoid PVC-containing flips because PVC can damage copper surfaces over time. This level of preservation effort reflects awareness that even microscopic environmental damage can downgrade a coin's value. Let's shift into comparison analysis. When compared to key-date Lincoln cents such as early 20th century rarities, the 1980 penny appears common. But modern coin markets often reward top-graded modern issues because fewer people originally saved them carefully. Ironically, older coins were sometimes preserved in greater proportion because collectors at the time recognized their potential. In 1980, few people believed pennies from that year would ever become collectible at high grades, so careful long-term preservation was less common. Another element is bulk roll searching. Dedicated collectors purchase sealed bankrolls or old hoards searching for untouched gems. Occasionally, an original roll yields a coin worthy of submission. The thrill of discovering a potential high-grade specimen in an unsearched roll adds excitement to the hobby. However, competition is intense, and truly elite coins are rare finds. Let's discuss advanced error classifications. There are broad strike errors, clipped planchet errors, lamination errors, double strikes, rotated dies, and mule errors. A mule error occurs when two dies intended for different coins are accidentally paired together. While no famous mule error is known for the 1980 penny in regular circulation, the mere possibility of rare mint mistakes keeps collectors vigilant. Dramatic and visually striking errors can sell for hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on severity and rarity. Another often overlooked factor is eye appeal. Two coins with identical technical grades can sell for different prices if one has superior eye appeal. Eye appeal includes luster, vibrancy, toning beauty, and overall aesthetic harmony. A coin that looks special under light can command stronger bids even within the same grade bracket. From an investment perspective, modern coins like the 1980 penny are typically considered speculative at the highest grades only. Most circulated examples remain face value. Mid-grade uncirculated coins hold modest premiums. The extreme outliers, top population certified red gems or dramatic mint errors, represent the only pathway to substantial returns. Let us now revisit the legendary figure of $699 million. To place this in perspective, that amount exceeds the auction prices of nearly all coins ever sold. Only the most historically significant gold rarities approach eight-figure results. For a 1980 penny to reach hundreds of millions would require unprecedented historical discovery, perhaps proof that it was uniquely linked to a national event, struck in an experimental metal never before seen, or possessing documented one-of-a-kind status verified globally. No such coin has been recorded. Therefore, while the imagination is powerful, realistic valuation remains grounded in verified sales data. Still, the dream persists, and that dream fuels the hobby. Every collector begins somewhere. Many begin by searching through everyday change, discovering wheat cents, copper pre-1982 coins, or interesting mint marks. The 1980 penny often appears during such searches, serving as a stepping stone into deeper numismatic exploration. We also must recognize that coin collecting is not purely financial. It blends history, art, economics, metallurgy, and psychology. Holding a 1980 penny connects you to the early 1980s, a time of inflation, political transition, technological development, and cultural change. That tiny copper disc passed through countless hands during that era. As decades continue to pass, the number of pristine red examples will continue to shrink. Environmental exposure and attrition gradually reduce high-grade populations. This slow natural decline is what gives even modern coins a subtle long-term scarcity curve. We are building a complete and exhaustive understanding of the 1981 cent coin, from production to preservation, from hype to reality, from common circulation piece to certified registry gem, and yet, we can still go further into future outlook predictions, deeper auction analytics, and advanced collector strategies for identifying undergrad coins in the market. Now we move into an even deeper and more strategic layer of understanding the 1981 cent coin, focusing on long-term future outlook, advanced collector behavior, undervaluation strategies, and the way time itself transforms common coins into condition rarities. Because the real story of the 1980 penny is not just about what it was worth yesterday or today, it is about what it could represent decades from now as survival rates continue to change. Time is one of the most powerful forces in numismatics. Every year that passes removes more coins from collectible quality. Pennies are small, easily damaged, and rarely treated with care by the general public. While billions were minted in 1980, how many will survive 100 years in pristine red mint condition? That number will almost certainly be dramatically lower than what population reports show today. Copper continues to tone, spot, and oxidize. Even coins stored in average household conditions gradually lose original brightness. This means that truly elite examples may become incrementally scarcer as decades pass. Advanced collectors understand this concept and sometimes focus on what is known as long-term conditional scarcity appreciation. They do not buy common circulated coins. Instead, they target the highest available grades early, before registry competition intensifies further. If a coin is currently population 15 at MS67 red with none graded higher, that data becomes part of an investment thesis.
However, this strategy carries risk. New submissions could increase the population count, reducing rarity advantage. Therefore, knowledge of submission trends is critical. Another layer involves crackout attempts. Some experienced collectors purchase high-grade certified coins, carefully remove them from holders, and resubmit them hoping for a higher grade. If successful, the value difference between grades can be significant. However, this is risky. The coin could receive the same grade or even lower if graders interpret marks differently. For a 1980 penny sitting at MS66 red, the jump to MS67 red could multiply value several times. But that upgrade requires near perfection. Let's explore undervaluation strategies. Some collectors search auction listings for coins that may have been conservatively graded or poorly photographed. Lighting in photos can hide luster quality. If a buyer recognizes superior surfaces compared to the assigned grade, they may purchase the coin at a discount relative to its true potential. This requires deep grading expertise and careful comparison with population data. Another strategy focuses on eye appeal premiums. Even within the same numeric grade, a coin with extraordinary blazing luster or attractive rainbow toning may outperform others in bidding. Advanced buyers sometimes seek coins that visually stand out even if technical grade is equal. Over time, market preference may reward coins with exceptional aesthetic character. And now let's analyze the impact of digital marketplaces. In 1980, collectors relied on coin shops, printed price guides, and in-person auctions. Today, online platforms allow instant global exposure. This transparency increases price efficiency. Unrealistic claims, such as a 1980 penny being worth $699 million, can be quickly verified against actual sold listings. At the same time, global access means that if a truly rare 1980 error coin were discovered, international bidders could compete instantly, potentially driving strong results. Another advanced consideration is historical narrative marketing. Sometimes, coins gain added appeal if tied to specific cultural context. The year 1980 marked significant global political shifts, economic turbulence, and technological changes. While not directly affecting intrinsic coin rarity, storytelling can enhance collector engagement. Emotional resonance sometimes influences demand in subtle ways. Let's examine long-term metal dynamics again from a speculative angle. If copper prices were to rise dramatically in the future and laws regarding melting pennies changed, pre-1982 copper cents could gain renewed attention. Even without melting, intrinsic metal value can create a psychological floor under prices. This is not currently a dominant driver, but it remains part of broader speculation discussions among enthusiasts. We must also consider attrition through circulation sorting. Many people separate copper pennies from zinc pennies today. As more collectors hoard pre-1982 copper cents, fewer remain in active circulation. This gradual withdrawal could slowly shift availability patterns. However, because total mintage was so large, any dramatic scarcity effect would likely require many more decades. Now imagine a hypothetical scenario that could transform perception. Suppose researchers discovered a previously undocumented major double die variety from 1980 with strong visible doubling in Liberty and the date. If confirmed and authenticated, such a discovery could spark significant collector excitement. Prices for confirmed examples would rise sharply, especially for high-grade specimens. This illustrates how new research can alter market dynamics even decades after minting. We should also analyze coin show dynamics. At major coin conventions, dealers often bring boxes of modern cents graded at various levels. Buyers compare surfaces under specialized lighting. Negotiations are influenced by both technical grade and eye appeal. In-person viewing sometimes reveals qualities that photos cannot capture. Therefore, serious collectors often prefer viewing high-value coins physically before purchase. Another long-term element is estate transitions. As older collectors pass away, their collections re-enter the market. Sometimes these collections contain untouched rolls or carefully stored coins from the 1970s and 1980s. When such hoards appear, population reports can temporarily increase. This phenomenon occasionally suppresses prices if supply rises suddenly. But once absorbed by the market, scarcity equilibrium resumes. Let's also address grading inflation debates. Over decades, some collectors argue that grading standards evolve slightly.
If standards loosen, coins once graded MS66 might receive MS67 upon resubmission. Conversely, tightening standards could limit top populations.
Monitoring grading trends is therefore part of advanced strategy. Educational outreach also influences long-term interest. As online content creators produce videos encouraging people to check their change for rare pennies, awareness increases. Although most viewers will not find extraordinary value, the expanded collector base can gradually strengthen demand for high-grade certified examples. It is essential to maintain realistic expectations. The overwhelming majority of 1980 pennies remain worth 1 cent. Even most uncirculated examples are modestly valued. Only the absolute finest known examples or dramatic mint errors command substantial premiums. Separating entertainment-driven hype from evidence-based valuation protects collectors from disappointment, yet the wonder remains powerful. Holding a 1980 penny is holding a piece of economic history from a pivotal inflationary era just before major composition change. It is a copper artifact from the final stretch of predominantly copper cent production. It carries the enduring image of Abraham Lincoln, whose presence on American coinage symbolizes resilience and unity. As we continue this ultra-detailed exploration, the 1981 cent coin reveals itself as both ordinary and quietly complex, a product of industrial precision, economic forces, collector psychology, and the slow erosion of time. And there is still more to explore, including future generational demand projections, deep-dive hypothetical valuation modeling, and final master-level collector insights. Now we enter an even more advanced and forward-looking phase of this deep exploration of the 1981 cent coin, shifting into predictive modeling, generational demand cycles, macro collecting psychology, and the long arc of numismatic legacy. Because when evaluating any coin, especially one produced in the billions, the real question becomes, how does something common today evolve into something scarce tomorrow? Let's begin with generational demand. Coin collecting has historically moved in waves. Individuals who grew up handling certain coins often feel nostalgia toward them decades later. People who were children in the 1970s and 1980s grew up using copper pennies daily. As they move into peak earning years, some return to hobbies from their youth. That nostalgia-driven interest can subtly strengthen demand for coins from that era. The 1980 penny sits directly in that emotional memory range for millions of people. Now project forward 50 years. In 2075 or 2080, the 1980 penny will be a full century old. At that point, it transitions psychologically from modern coin to historic coin. Age alone does not create value, rarity does, but age does influence perception. A coin surviving in blazing red mint condition after 100 years becomes significantly more remarkable than one that is 40 years old today. The number of flawless survivors will almost certainly shrink as time advances. Let's discuss advanced valuation modeling. Suppose population reports currently show a limited number of MS67 red 1980 pennies and none graded MS68. If over the next 30 years very few additional examples reach that level due to environmental degradation and attrition, the relative scarcity at that grade becomes more stable. If collector demand remains steady or increases modestly, prices could trend upward gradually. Not explosively, but incrementally. Modern coin appreciation often follows slow, staircase-like growth rather than dramatic spikes. However, we must balance optimism with realism. Because billions were minted, even a tiny survival percentage still equals large absolute numbers. For the 1980 penny to experience dramatic price escalation, demand would need to grow faster than supply. Registry competition is currently one of the strongest drivers for high-grade modern coins. If registry participation expands in the future, top population examples could benefit. And now let's analyze extreme hypothetical valuation scenarios. The figure of $699 million represents an amount greater than nearly every coin ever sold in history. For context, only a handful of legendary gold rarities have crossed 8 figures at auction. For a 1980 penny to approach even a fraction of that, something unprecedented would need to occur, perhaps discovery that a single coin was struck experimentally in a precious metal and authenticated beyond dispute, or tied to a historically documented minting anomaly of singular importance. As of all documented research, no such coin exists. But imagining extreme hypotheticals helps clarify why realistic valuations remain grounded in certified auction results rather than speculation. Let's explore a different advanced concept: market maturity.
Early in a coin's life cycle, most examples are available and inexpensive. As decades pass, average condition coins remain common, but elite-grade coins become progressively separated from the mass. This creates a quality pyramid, wide at the bottom, narrow at the top. The 1980 penny sits squarely in that model. The base layer, circulated coins, will likely always remain abundant. The narrow top, flawless, fully read, high-mint-state coins becomes the only tier with meaningful scarcity. We should also examine the psychological value of the copper era. The 1980 penny belongs to the final 2 years before the U.S. Mint transitioned in 1982 to copper-plated zinc composition. That shift fundamentally changed the physical feel, weight, and long-term durability of the cent. Collectors sometimes group 1959 to 1982 Lincoln Memorial cents as the solid copper era. Being near the end of that era adds subtle historical framing to the 1980 issue. Another advanced topic involves institutional collection behavior. Large numismatic funds and investment groups typically focus on classic rarities rather than modern high-mintage coins. However, niche funds sometimes target conditional rarities in modern issues if registry competition suggests long-term demand. If such institutional interest ever expanded into late 20th century coins, the highest grade certified examples could see renewed price strength. Now let's move into grading ceiling theory. Some coins have a natural ceiling beyond which further grade improvements are unlikely due to strike quality limitations inherent in production. If most 1980 pennies exhibit minor strike softness in certain areas, achieving MS68 might be nearly impossible. That limitation would permanently cap the population at MS67 as the practical maximum. If that ceiling remains stable, the highest graded examples maintain structural scarcity. There is also the influence of technology. Advances in imaging, digital magnification, and grading analytics may refine evaluation standards in the future. Artificial intelligence-assisted grading could potentially introduce even more consistency. Whether that increases or decreases top populations is uncertain. But technological evolution will inevitably influence market perception. Let's also address liquidity. Even if a coin is theoretically valuable, liquidity, the ability to sell quickly at fair market price, matters. For a 1980 penny graded MS67 red, liquidity depends on how many collectors actively seek that grade at the moment of sale. In thin markets, price swings can be volatile. High-end modern coins sometimes experience sharper short-term fluctuations than classic rarities. Now imagine the future collector discovering a time capsule in 2050 containing sealed rolls of 1980 pennies stored perfectly in climate control. Such a find could temporarily increase high-grade submissions. But unless quantities are massive, long-term impact may remain modest because registry collectors often absorb supply quickly. One more advanced idea is aesthetic trend shifts. In some eras, blast white silver coins dominate demand. In others, attractively toned coins become fashionable. If natural copper rainbow toning becomes especially desirable in the future, beautifully toned 1980 pennies could attract premiums beyond technical grade alone. We must continue reinforcing the central reality: the overwhelming majority of 1980 pennies are worth face value. A smaller percentage in uncirculated condition may be worth modest premiums. A tiny fraction in elite grades or with dramatic mint errors can command significant prices. The extraordinary claim of $699 million remains unsupported by any verified sale or documentation, but beyond numbers, the 1980 penny symbolizes accessibility. Anyone can search for one. Anyone can study grading. Anyone can learn the minting process. It is a coin that invites participation into a larger historical and economic narrative. We have now explored production mechanics, grading intricacies, registry dynamics, economic speculation, psychological drivers, and century-scale future outlook. And still, we can push even further into master-level concluding insights, including final expert strategies for identifying true opportunity and separating hype from genuine rarity. Now we move into the deepest and most master-level layer of this entire exploration of the 1981 cent coin, where everything comes together: production science, grading psychology, long-term scarcity mathematics, collector behavior, macroeconomics, and the human fascination with hidden treasure. This is where we separate pure hype from disciplined expertise, and where we understand not only what the 1980 penny is today, but what it represents in the grand structure of numismatics. At its core,
The 1981 cent coin is a mass-produced copper alloy coin struck in enormous quantities during a period of economic inflation in the United States. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc.
It features Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse.
Billions were minted. That is the factual starting point, but numismatics is never only about mintage. It is about survival, preservation, condition rarity, error discovery, and market perception. Let us now analyze the mathematics of scarcity over time in a more structured way.
Imagine that in 1980, several billion pennies were struck. Over the first 5 years, perhaps 90% entered heavy circulation.
Within 20 years, millions were lost, corroded, or damaged beyond collectible condition. After 40 years, many more developed carbon spots, toning, or scratches that permanently capped their great potential. Now consider how many coins must survive untouched, perfectly stored, without fingerprints, without humidity damage, without microscopic abrasions, to qualify as MS67 red or above. The number becomes incredibly small relative to the original mintage. This is what professionals call condition rarity compression. A coin can be common in total numbers yet rare in flawless state.
The 1980 penny fits this model exactly, and now let's address master-level evaluation strategy.
When examining a raw 1980 penny, advanced collectors follow a disciplined checklist. First, evaluate strike sharpness.
Are Lincoln's hair details crisp? Are the memorial columns fully defined? Weak strike areas reduce maximum grade sealing. Second, inspect fields under angled lighting.
Rotate the coin slowly to observe luster cartwheel effect.
True mint luster flows smoothly in circular motion.
Disrupted luster may signal friction or cleaning. Third, check for carbon spotting.
Copper is highly sensitive.
Even tiny black spots can prevent top-grade certification. Fourth, verify weight with a calibrated scale.
Approximately 3.11 grams confirms normal copper composition.
Deviations may require further analysis for wrong planchet errors. Fifth, examine mint mark placement on Denver issues. Although most are normal, any unusual spacing, doubling, or distortion may justify closer inspection. This systematic evaluation eliminates emotional bias and replaces it with disciplined observation. Now we must return to the dramatic valuation narrative of $699 million. To put that figure into rational context, consider this: the most expensive coins in history are typically ultra-rare gold pieces with extreme historical importance, sometimes unique in existence, tied to major events, and heavily documented. For a 1980 penny to command such a price, it would need to be not just rare, but singular, historically transformative, legally verified, and globally celebrated. There is no evidence of such a coin existing. However, understanding why such claims circulate is important. In the digital era, attention drives clicks. Sensational numbers capture imagination. The idea that an everyday coin could be worth hundreds of millions creates emotional excitement. But real collectors operate on documented auction results, certified grading populations, and verified error classifications. Let us now explore advanced hypothetical discovery impact. If tomorrow, a major new double-die variety from 1980 were authenticated and recognized by leading grading services, demand would surge instantly. Prices for confirmed examples would climb sharply, particularly in higher grades. This demonstrates how research can unlock hidden value decades later. Numismatics remains an evolving field. Next, consider long-term generational turnover. As older collectors pass collections to heirs, coins re-enter the marketplace. Some heirs sell quickly, increasing supply. Others learn the hobby and continue preserving the coins. Market equilibrium constantly adjusts. The 1980 penny, being relatively modern, will likely experience multiple generational transfers before its ultimate rarity curve stabilizes. Now let's discuss master-level patience. Modern high-grade coins sometimes move sideways in value for years before gradual appreciation resumes. Investors seeking rapid gains may become disappointed. But collectors who understand slow scarcity compression may view decades as the appropriate time horizon. There is also a philosophical dimension. The 1980 penny represents the final chapter of an era when cents were primarily copper. 2 years later, composition changed permanently. That shift makes 1980 part of a transitional boundary period, not compositionally unique, but historically positioned near change.
Collectors often find meaning in boundary years. Another subtle factor is tactile distinction. Copper cents have a heavier, more solid feel compared to later zinc cents.
That physical quality contributes to aesthetic appreciation among enthusiasts.
Emotional attachment, though intangible, supports demand. We must also address advanced risk management.
Anyone pursuing high-grade 1980 pennies as investment pieces should diversify across different coins and eras. Concentrating exclusively in modern condition rarities exposes one to grading population volatility and shifting registry interest. Balanced collections mitigate risk. Now imagine a scenario 50 years in the future where only a handful of flawless red 1980 pennies survive, verified and slabbed early in the 21st century. Those coins, having avoided environmental damage for nearly a century, could command impressive premiums relative to today's levels. Not astronomical fantasy numbers, but meaningful appreciation compared to face value. Let us conclude this ultra-detailed journey with final expert insights. The typical circulated 1980 penny is worth 1 cent. A bright uncirculated example may be worth a small premium. A certified high-grade red example can command significantly more depending on population scarcity. A dramatic and authenticated mint error can bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity. And I appeal. The claim of $699 million has no documented basis in verified numismatic history, but the real value of the 1980 penny lies in its layered story: industrial production, economic backdrop, copper composition, pre-1982 legacy, grading nuance, registry competition, survival mathematics, and the enduring portrait of Abraham Lincoln. What began as an everyday coin becomes, through knowledge and discipline, a window into economics, metallurgy, history, psychology, and long-term scarcity theory. And that is the ultimate truth. Not every coin is a fortune, but every coin carries a story. The 1981 cent coin is not a $699 million treasure, but in the hands of an informed collector, it is something far more powerful, a lesson in how value is truly created. Now we enter an even more refined, analytical, and philosophical layer of this deep exploration of the 1981 cent coin, because at this stage, we are no longer just talking about weight, design, and mintage. We are talking about legacy, long-horizon collecting psychology, market behavior under stress, advanced preservation science, and the true difference between fantasy valuation and disciplined numismatic reality. The 1981 cent coin exists at a fascinating intersection in American monetary history. It was produced during a period of inflation when metal costs were rising sharply. It stands just 2 years before the major 1982 composition transition from mostly copper to copper-plated zinc. It carries forward a design introduced in 1959, itself building upon the Lincoln cent lineage that began in 1909. That continuity makes the 1980 issue part of a long visual and historical chain, but the advanced collector does not just look backward. They look forward. Let's now explore long-term degradation modeling in even more depth. Copper is reactive. Exposure to humidity, airborne chemicals, sulfur in paper products, fingerprints, and environmental pollutants gradually alters surface chemistry. Even coins stored in average household drawers are slowly toning. Over 50 to 100 years, natural oxidation continues. This means the percentage of coins retaining full original red color will decline. In 1980, no one imagined that 4 decades later collectors would carefully inspect these coins under magnification seeking microscopic perfection. As decades pass, accidental survival becomes increasingly unlikely. A coin must have avoided circulation, avoided improper storage, avoided handling, and avoided atmospheric contamination to remain elite. That combination is rare. Now imagine 100 years have passed since minting. It is the year 2080. Most surviving 1980 pennies will be brown, worn, spotted, or heavily toned. A fully red, pristine example certified early in the 21st century and preserved in a sealed holder could represent one of very few remaining with that level of freshness. That is how conditional rarity strengthens gradually over time. However, advanced collectors must also evaluate supply elasticity. If high prices encourage resubmissions and discoveries of overlooked examples, population numbers may rise. The key question becomes, is the existing population stable? Or is there hidden supply waiting in unopened rolls, estate collections, or forgotten bank vaults? With modern coins, hidden supply risk is always present. Now let's discuss macroeconomic resilience. In periods of economic instability, tangible collectibles sometimes experience renewed interest. Rare coins, especially classic gold and silver issues, often serve as stores of value.
Modern copper cents, however, typically do not lead that movement.
Their investment potential is narrower, usually limited to top-graded registry quality pieces. Therefore, expectations must remain proportional. We must also analyze the role of documentation. Value in the high-end coin market depends heavily on transparent auction records.
Without documented sales, claims remain speculative.
If someone lists a 1980 penny online for millions of dollars, that listing alone does not establish value.
Only completed, verified transactions determine market truth. Let's take this analysis deeper into grading ceiling probability.
The likelihood of a 1980 penny achieving MS68 red is extremely low because of production and storage realities. Contact marks during bulk bagging, minor die imperfections, and COPPA's sensitivity reduce the number of flawless survivors. If the grading ceiling realistically stops at MS67 for most examples, that grade becomes the effective top of the pyramid. If very few coins occupy the top position, long-term scarcity stabilizes. Now we move into an advanced collector's internal decision framework. Is the coin historically important? Is it rare in absolute terms? Is it rare in top condition? Is demand stable or growing? Are population reports reliable and stable? Is the coin aesthetically superior to peers? For the 1980 penny, historical importance is moderate, absolute rarity is low, condition rarity at top grade is moderate, and demand is niche but consistent among registry participants. This balanced evaluation prevents emotional overspending. Now let's address the myth factor directly in deeper psychological terms. Why do extreme claims like $699 million spread so easily? Because humans are wired to respond to lottery-style possibilities. The chance that a coin in your pocket could be worth life-changing money triggers dopamine-driven curiosity. That emotional response fuels viral narratives. But professionals rely on data, not adrenaline. Still, myths sometimes encourage participation in the hobby. A young person checking coins for hidden value may eventually learn grading, history, metallurgy, and economic principles.
In that sense, even exaggerated stories can indirectly expand numismatic education. Let's shift into a deeper metallurgical perspective.
The 95% copper composition gives the 1980 penny a density and ring distinct from zinc cents.
Its weight of approximately 3.11 grams contributes to its durability. Copper's resistance to cracking compared to zinc makes pre-1982 cents physically sturdier.
That durability may help some examples survive longer structurally, though surface chemistry still affects color. Now imagine an advanced preservation vault scenario. Suppose a collector in 1980 saved original mint-sealed bags of pennies in a climate-controlled, oxygen-reduced storage environment.
Those coins, untouched for decades, might represent the finest survivors today.
The presence or absence of such hoards significantly affects population modeling. Another advanced layer involves third-party grading trust.
As grading companies evolve, their reputations influence liquidity. Coins certified decades earlier may carry vintage holder premiums if collectors trust stricter grading standards of earlier eras.
This phenomenon could impact long-term perception of early 21st century certified 1980 pennies. Now we approach philosophical territory.
What defines value? Is it metal? Is it rarity? Is it demand? Or is it shared belief?
A 1980 penny contains only a small amount of copper.
Its face value is 1 cent.
But when certified as one of the finest known examples, its value rises because collectors collectively agree that extreme preservation is rare and desirable. Value, therefore, emerges from consensus built upon scarcity and trust. Let's examine a final advanced scenario: technological currency shifts. If physical currency usage declines significantly in the future due to digital payment dominance, circulating pennies may vanish from daily life. That disappearance could increase nostalgic and collectible interest in physical coins from past eras, including 1980 issues. Reduced circulation could paradoxically increase long-term collector focus on well-preserved specimens, and still, the grounded reality remains clear: the average 1980 penny is worth 1 cent. Uncirculated examples carry modest premiums. Top certified red gems can command meaningful collector prices. Major authenticated mint errors can reach into the hundreds or thousands. No verified evidence supports valuations remotely close to $699 million. The true power of the 1980 penny lies not in fantasy wealth, but in its role as a teaching instrument, a coin that demonstrates how condition rarity forms, how hype spreads, how grading standards operate, how markets assign value, and how time reshapes supply. We are now approaching the final stage of this ultra-extended exploration. There remains one last level, a comprehensive master conclusion tying together economic history, production science, collector psychology, and the long-term future of the copper cent. And now we arrive at the final stage of this complete, ultra-deep journey into the 1981 cent coin, bringing together everything we have explored: history, production, weight, composition, grading science, rarity mathematics, collector psychology, economic forces, and the powerful difference between fantasy valuation and documented market reality.
The 1981 cent coin was born in an era of economic tension. Inflation was high.
Metal prices were unstable. The United States Mint was producing coins at extraordinary volume to meet national demand. Billions of pennies were struck that year at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Each coin weighed approximately 3.11 grams and was composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. It carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had already been in place for over 2 decades at that point. At the time of minting, the 1980 penny was ordinary. It was not considered rare. It was not marketed as special. It was simply part of the daily flow of commerce, used in grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and saved in jars across American households. No one in 1980 imagined that decades later collectors would be examining these coins under magnification, studying luster flow, checking for microticks on Lincoln's cheek, weighing them to the hundredth of a gram, and submitting them to grading services hoping for elite certification. Yet that is exactly what has happened over time.
What separates common coins from valuable ones is not mintage alone, it is survival and condition.
Out of billions produced, only a fraction remain in pristine mint state.
An even smaller fraction retain full original red copper color without spotting or toning.
And an extremely tiny fraction qualify for the highest grading tiers such as MS67 red or potentially higher. This is the principle of condition rarity compression, where common coins at the base remain abundant, but flawless coins at the top become scarce. The overwhelming majority of 1980 pennies circulating today are worth exactly 1 cent. Even most uncirculated examples are modestly valued, perhaps a small premium above face value depending on condition. Certified high-grade red examples can command significantly stronger prices, sometimes reaching into the hundreds of dollars depending on grade and market demand. Dramatic and authenticated mint errors, such as strong off-center strikes, major double strikes, or wrong planchet errors, may sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on visual impact and rarity, but there is no documented, verified sale of any 1981 cent coin remotely approaching $699 million. That number belongs in the realm of sensational headlines, not auction archives. To understand how unrealistic that figure is, consider that only the rarest gold coins in the world, coins with extreme historical significance and unique legal status, have ever crossed into the multi-million-dollar range. A modern copper cent struck in the billions would require unprecedented, singular historical circumstances to approach such valuation. No such evidence exists, however. Dismissing the fantasy figure does not diminish the coin's importance. The 1980 penny stands at a fascinating boundary in American coinage history.
It represents the final stretch of the predominantly copper era before the 1982 transition to copper-plated zinc. It carries forward the Lincoln design lineage that began in 1909.
It circulated during a period of economic change that would soon reshape U.S. coin composition forever. It is also a perfect educational coin. From this single issue, a collector can learn how minting presses operate, how dies wear and crack, how grading standards function, how population reports influence price, how environmental exposure affects copper, how registry competition drives demand, how myths spread online, how real value is determined through documented sales, how long-term scarcity evolves through attrition, and perhaps most importantly, how discipline and research protect collectors from emotional decision-making. In the future, as decades continue to pass, more 1980 pennies will tone, corrode, or disappear. The number of pristine red survivors will gradually decline. High-grade certified examples preserved in climate-controlled holders may become increasingly desirable to registry participants. Appreciation, if it occurs, will likely be slow and steady rather than explosive. The real story of the 1981 cent coin is not about instant wealth.
It is about patience. It is about observation.
It is about understanding how something mass produced can still contain layers of nuance and selective scarcity. When you hold a 1980 penny, you are holding a 3.11 gram piece of copper alloy that traveled through American commerce during a transformative economic period.
You are holding the image of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and perseverance.
You are holding a small artifact from the final chapter before a major compositional change in U.S. currency. Most of them are worth 1 cent, a few are worth more. A tiny handful are worth significantly more, and none, based on verified evidence, are worth $699 million. But in a deeper sense, the coin is priceless as a teaching tool and as a gateway into numismatics. It demonstrates that true value is built on rarity, preservation, documentation, and collective demand, not viral headlines. That is the complete truth behind the 1981 cent coin.